Hey everybody, and welcome back to my channel for another art journaling video. I'm again working in that cheaper journal from Action, which is a local store here in Europe where you get some art and craft supplies. I have primed the pages with clear gesso because I wanted to work on top with the Neocolors. And this paper, although it's thick, it bleeds through, so you can see some spots here from my previous video from last week where I did that stencil stamping, stencil smooshing with distress inks, and I did this on not prime paper. I did this on the pure paper, and that bled through the pages. So I have primed these with clear gesso also because the Neocolors work better over a gesso surface than directly on paper. For my focal images, I will pick some of these Collage Fodder pieces that I made with my stencils, and I will link up a tutorial how I did these. Not exactly these, but something very similar. And I think I'm going for the green ones today, and I just looking through them, and I'm picking the colors of the Neocolors, matching the focal points I want to use. I'm going to use one of these images, and I'm picking green Neocolors to create my page. I just lay down the crayons directly on the paper, and then I blend them with my fingers, and I'm picking turquoisey and greenish shades, and I am making a circular shape just as my layout. I think that's quite a nice and easy way to start an art journal page. It's a nice, it's a safe thing, I would say. You can't go wrong in composition if you start with a circle. And I also add a bit more to one corner. This time I'm picking the bottom left corner, where I then later will place my focal point. There is some light yellow in these collage photo pieces, and that's the reason why I also pick a little bit of that color. And you can see the area where I'm focusing on. That will be more heavier in texture and color later, and then I will place my focal image in this area. When I'm blending my Neocolors, I just use my finger with some water, and I try not to cover the whole page. I try to keep some white space, some white areas, so it doesn't look boring. I think I say this in all my videos. You need some contrast, you need a wide tonal range from light to dark, and that's why I try to keep some white space. As always, I'm going to link up our blog post in the video description. You can jump over and have a look at the finished page. There will be photos. And you will also find all the products I've been using in the video description. I picked two complementary colors that I wanted to use to make some marks with, and here I'm also making some scribbly marks with a Derwent Inktense pencil. I'm dipping the nib of the pencil into my water just to get a little bit more of the pencil. As the crayon is quite thick on the page, it also scratches away some of the crayon. That can be quite interesting and give you some other interesting textures. I'm just playing here to bring in more different marks so everything gets more interesting, and you also get more depth the more layers you add. Of course, you have to take care not to add so many layers that you will get just a muddy color. But I think over time you get used to the materials you have and the colors you're using, and then you exactly know what works and what does not work. For the complementaries, I picked some light tones, an apricot and a kind of a pinkish color, and I'm just making some marks over that page. I let it dry before because if you can't work into the wet Neocolor. I also wanted to layer that, and that's really nice about the Neocolors. They layer quite nicely over darker areas. In the areas where I have some thicker Neocolor, it's not possible to go over the top with a lighter color, but everywhere where I have used water with them, it usually works quite nicely. And I try not to add too much of that. I just wanted to give some hints, and that also increases the contrast of the page and the interest. Now it's time to bring in some textures and marks, and I decided to use that stencil with a baby wipe and just remove some of the crayon through the stencil from the page, and that gives me a really nice pattern. This is a piece from our mini ink dot stencil. It is actually out of stock, but we will restock it. It's on the way. Not sure when it will be here, but you can already order it. You just have to wait until we have it. Then we will ship the order. Here I'm using some white acrylic ink to make some splatters on the spread. I wanted to use my white Art Graf crayon. That's what I very often use for white splatters, but I could not find it. So yeah, I'm just going for the acrylic ink, and then I will let that dry, and then I will come in and do some stamping to add more interest and texture and contrast. As my focal points have a black outline, I also wanted to bring in some black to the background so everything looks cohesive. Sometimes I would put some foam underneath my page to make sure the surface is quite flat, so I can do a good stamping impression. But there is not a lot going on in this book, just on the previous page, and I can't change this with a foam pad because it's directly on the back. But as it's just a texture stamping, I don't really mind if all the images I make are perfect or not. This stamp, by the way, is from our Pencil Marks #2 stamp set. And I'm also going to combine that with an image from our Mix a Sentiment stamp set because I really like some text on a background, and that's a good stamp to just add some hints of text. And in the meantime, I also found my box with the Art Graf crayons, and I wanted to make some black splatters as well. And here I'm using the Art Graf tailor shaped crayon to do that. It's a very quick way to get some color to make splatters. And also, oh, what else did I want to say? That they are easy to clean, because if you have them on your brush, it's a watercolor, just washes out. If you have acrylic ink, it's always important to not let it dry. Before I do the splatters, I'm doing some marks with a acrylic brush pen. These do not really work good over Neocolors, so you can't do that too heavily or too much. You can't draw directly on the Neocolors. You can make some dots like I'm doing it here. It's not the best option, but I have these on my desk and I just grabbed one of these yellows. I tested them on the right side of my journal just to see if the color matches my fodder images, and yeah. And now I'm going to make some black splatters, and then I let that dry completely before I finish the spread. To give my images something to sit on, I wanted to add a little bit of collage, and I'm deciding to use a piece of these washi tapes that I made with my members last Saturday. So if you're interested in that, you have to join my membership program. I'm offering a video every other Saturday, which is a little bit more in-depth and usually a bit longer than my normal YouTube videos. And I would also say it's a bit more less edited. So I'm just working in my studio, I'm doing something, and I take you along with me. And we made this washi tape from gummed paper tape. I have a bunch of video tutorials where I use this tape with my jelly plate and make my own washi tapes. And this time I used the tapes with all my paper scraps, and I just glued them onto the tape and made these washi tape strips. And they are really nice as they offer you a finished collage cluster, and you just have to add water to the back and then it will stick. And that's really nice, just like the normal washi tapes, I would say, to work quickly. If you want to create something, you don't have to think about too much. I picked one of the piece from one of the tapes that was very nice color-wise, and I'm going to adhere this to my spread. But before, I wanted to stamp it a little bit more because I really like stitching on my work, and I'm always too lazy to pull out my sewing machine. And today I'm using our new stitching borders to stamp over this collage fodder piece. The stitching borders is a collection of borders that look like you have sewed something, and we already had these stamps, not all of them, but most of them on older sets, which part of them is already sold out, and a lot of them are not in the same size as the originals were, so they are a little bit different in size as well. I also decided to just tear a smaller piece from the tape again and add it to this one, so it's not so boring. It looks a bit more stacked and not only that one rectangle piece. So I'm just using a little bit, and I'm going to add that here, so it looks a bit better, I think. And I'm also deciding to add a little bit of stitching here, of the stitching stamp here, so it looks as if these two pieces were also sewn together. I will do this after I've adhered the papers, and you can see you just have to wet the surface of the backside and the glue will get activated, and then you can just use it. Very easy. Whilst I was gluing this down, I had a look at that stamp set, which was still next to me, and I picked that little circle image and decided to stamp it on my page in a similar color to the background. So it's an emerald green from StazOn, and I just thought that might fit the page quite well, and I'm just stamping this into the background. Yes, and now it's time to adhere the focal image or focal images. I'm not sure how many I want to add at this stage. I'm laying the pieces on my spread, and then usually I look through my camera onto the piece because I get a little bit more distance, and then it makes it easier to see what looks better. What you also can do is just take photos of different layouts and then compare them. Step back a bit and have a look at your piece, or just use a mirror and look through the mirror onto your piece. That also gives you a really different view, and sometimes it makes it easier to decide what to glue down and where to glue it down, or where to place things. As the page is quite bulky because of my collage cluster, I'm using some wet glue to adhere the pieces. That makes it a bit easier, and I'm just sticking down this one to the collage cluster and the other one coming from the top. And once that the glue is dry, I'm going to cut off the overlapping piece. And I'm also going to adhere a sentiment to that page. I don't know which one I am going to use, but definitely one of our new stamp set from our Collage Leaves 3. I just have to prepare that, and you will see what sentiment I've added on the photo I'm going to add to this video, and here you can see it. I hope you enjoyed that video. I hope you are inspired, and hopefully we will see us next week. Have a wonderful day. Bye.